As some of you know, I love Judge Dredd. Not quite as much as I love Doctor Who. So I thought today I'd show you how to get into both classic and modern Who. Most of Classic Who is on BritBox, so for the first time ever, you can watch almost the entirety of Classic Who for not as much as beforehand you would have had to have bought each story individually or in a box set. Hello, Editing Tom here. So, apparently you can no longer get a BritBox account just on its own. However, you can access BritBox through either an ITVX subscription or as a channel on the Prime Video thing. But where do you start? Most of Classic Who is self-contained, so you can start anywhere. So why not the beginning? Well, from 1967 to 1978, the BBC junked a bunch of the first three Doctors eras. While all of the third Doctor's era eventually was found, the first two Doctors have a lot of stories that are missing, meaning you either have to watch reconstructions or animations to experience these stories. I'm also aware that 60s pacing is quite slow in comparison to today, so it's not for everyone. So, now, as stated previously, classic Doctor Who is quite self-contained, so for the most part you can just start at the beginning of the Doctor's era and just watch from there. However, the fifth Doctor's era does start with a third part in a trilogy, so if you want the full picture you will have to watch Tom's last two stories, Keeper of Traken and then Logopolis, before watching Castor Velvet to know what's going on, but for the rest of them you can just start on episode 1. Now, the only thing I would say is, like all television, there are good stories and bad stories, and sometimes a series is full of mostly bad stories, but stick with it, as while classic Doctor Who's lows are very low, their highs are absolutely amazing. Now, this is what I think most fans have done, as if you weren't watching in the 60s, 70s or 80s, it would have been quite difficult to watch it all in order. Take that to mean impossible. So fans have just watched whatever's been released on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray and reruns if you caught them. So it's a tried and tested way of watching Doctor Who. Now, of course, there are many lists on the internet of how to watch Classic Who and what stories to watch, so I thought I'd give you me and my dad's story list here. Little thing here, Herbie wants me to tell you that he recommends The Tomb of the Cybermen. Okay, so Terror of Voivodes. I know anyone who watches Doctor Who is very confused because it is part of Trial, but it can be found without the Trial elements on the season 23 box set. But if you can't find that, I quite like The Two Doctors and Revelation of the Daleks. Of course, Doctor Who was put on an indefinite hiatus in 1989, and apart from the movie in 1996, there wasn't any proper Doctor Who on screens before being brought back in 2005. Watch WTF is the Wilderness Era, Part 1, for more information on that time period. Seamless plug. So, how do you watch modern Doctor Who? All of the revival of Doctor Who is on BBC iPlayer, so you can just watch it from the beginning. But of course, 13 seasons can be a lot for some people, so you can. If there's a Doctor Who you were already familiar with or interested in watching, you can just start with their first stories. You will benefit from watching the previous series for both the 10th and 12th Doctors, as companions do cross over from the previous Doctor, but you don't really have to. Unlike Classic Who, Modern Who can get quite lore heavy and have a lot of required watching. So if you really know nothing, there are dedicated jumping on points created just for you. These are Rose, the 11th Hour, the Pilot and the Woman Who Fell to Earth. Now you can pick any of these jumping on points and just watch from there. Now, much like Classic Who, Modern Who has many lists online of stories to start with, or the best stories, but I have a few things to say about that. When dealing with these lists, many will say watch Blink. Irregardless of my dislike for that story, don't watch Blink first. It's not a Doctor Who story. It's a backdoor pilot for a spin-off show that never happened. It doesn't feel like Doctor Who. The Doctor's barely ever in it. If you watch Blink and you like it, that's great. Good for you. Don't start with Blink. It doesn't feel like Doctor Who. If you watch Blink, you'll go in expecting something else from the rest of the show. Much like Classic Who, me and my dad have created a list of quintessential Doctor Who, and these are: not agree with me for our choices for quintessential Doctor Who viewing list, so why don't you put yours in the comments? And remember, there is no true perfect way to get into Doctor Who. So experiment. Just watch Doctor Who.